When does experience become reality? I mean, here we are in 2026 and artificial intelligence taking off like a bat out of hell. And here we are. And we're talking about Mary's Room. Mary's Room was introduced by the philosopher Frank Jackson in 1982. And I'm Mario Leone. Welcome to the Voices Street channel. Don't forget to support this channel on Patreon and visit that through the Podbean. As of 2026, that was 44 years ago when Frank Jackson had the Mary's Room, and that's when the idea was it was a thought experiment. So today's episode is titled Mary's Room and AI, When Experience Actually Becomes Reality. So Frank Jackson introduced a simple idea, but it was a very innovative idea, a disruptive idea. How a scientist could know everything about color without ever experiencing. And if that's true, then what does it say about AI and intelligence today, especially artificial intelligence, that it knows everything but it experiences absolutely nothing? Isn't that interesting? It knows everything but it experiences absolutely nothing. There is no experience of qualia. There is none. And more importantly, what does it say about how you make decisions in a world that's overloaded and absolutely flooded with information and data? That's my question. That's my beautiful statement of the day. Mary's Room is a thought experiment, and Frank Jackson had a lot to do with it, roughly around 44 years ago. But what it does is pretty valuable. It actually challenges our deepest assumptions in science and computer science. And here's the deal. People believe that information equals understanding. And that's where we are now. And that's what AI is doing to us. And today, I have to extend the question into artificial intelligence, understanding qualia, which is our human experience, and human consciousness. Because if experience is not just data, it's not just information, then reality itself is not just data. Now, I always say reality is data because you have nutrition, vitamins are inside of food, that's data, oxygen, the molecules, the information, colors, all of that. But what about feeling at the end? So you see, they really do go hand in hand. Because if experience is not just information, it's not just data, then reality itself is not just data. It's an interpretation. And our emotions have a lot to do with it. That's where it gets interesting. So Mary's Room, Mary was a scientist who lives in a black and white room. She learns every fact about color. She studies color therapy, frequencies of light, everything that has to do with color. Let me intellectualize all there is about color. She studies the wavelengths, the optics, the neuroscience, the biology, all the fun stuff, and she knows everything that could objectively be known about color vision and how it's perceived. Isn't that dandy? Isn't that great? Right? It's so exciting. But then she steps out into the room. She goes out of the room and she steps out into the world and she sees red for the first time. Isn't that amazing? And it seems so simple, right? But here's the very idea that disrupts the entire process. Did she learn anything new? Did she have an actual experience? Rather than living life intellectually and logically, did she actually have an experience? Did she learn something new? If the answer is yes, then the knowledge is not purely informational. And there's something beyond data. That something is called qualia, the raw, subjective experience of your reality. So AI, it's got its limits. It knows a lot. Awesome. AI and the limits of knowing, it's a big deal because artificial intelligence, it processes entire data sets and libraries of knowledge in seconds. It can map patterns. It can simulate reasoning. Awesome. Great. Fantastic. It can generate predictions at scale. Awesome. Fantastic. You now can predict whether or not your business is going to do good based on the information you know, but it does not experience anything. It doesn't feel warmth, it doesn't suffer, doesn't experience what art looks like, and it doesn't see red. Period, end of story, full fucking stop. So it's really obvious. The big connection here is obvious, and it becomes very clear. You have this AI intelligence system, it knows everything about experience without ever having to experience. So it can't really tell you what feelings feel like. It can't tell you what a sunrise might feel like. So there is this big entire space in between your simulation and sensation. Interesting, isn't it? Because interpretation of experience is reality. Reality is not perception. Interpretation of that perception is reality. Human beings, they don't live inside of objective information and data. Even though our world is data filled, we live inside the interpretation of it. Period. If this wasn't true, psychology wouldn't exist. Sales wouldn't exist. So many things rely on that idea that two people can witness the same event and live in completely different realities. Two people can live in the same neighborhood and have completely different reality. Not because reality somehow magically changed, but it is all about the interpretation, and we can look towards how the interpretation actually. This means reality, it's lived. It's lived. It's a lived experience. And it's not what always happens externally. It's lived internally as well, not just externally. It is what is constructed and felt internally. Your inside world is just as important as the outside. Experience is not a passive idea. We are meaning-making machines, and the way you can understand experience is active meaning-making at the best end of the. Experience is not a passive recording. Memories are not complete. I mean, we have memories of certain things, and what tends to happen when we recall these memories, we don't recall perfect video files. Like your brain doesn't treat a memory like a video file on your computer where you get the whole entire thing. You get bits and pieces here and there, and your brain starts to form some narratives as a result. Interesting, right? So it's not some video recording, but we are meaning-making machines at the end of the day. And experience is not a passive idea, and it shouldn't be. And if people are treating it so passively, they're putting more credence in the knowledge and less in the application. We're putting more credence in the information and less about going to a job interview or having an actual experience. So we got information overload. It's everywhere. We're all overloaded with information. We're taking in information in astronomical amounts. So much. We are overloaded, and decision paralysis is everywhere. So here we are in modern life. We got information at our fingertips. It's everywhere. We got our whole lives on our phone now because that's what we wanted. And it's going to grow faster in our ability to actually integrate or understand any meaning from it. Interesting, right? It's amazing. So when we look at all this information and we wonder why some people have systems in their life, they use systems of the way they see the world in reality, and that helps them process certain things. So the amount of information is growing. It's growing, but can we take meaning from it? Since we are meaning-making machines, can we find meaning? Can you control what things mean to you? And that's the hardest part, the hardest thing anybody will have to do. Because when the information starts getting to be too much, the ability to interpret that, your capacity to interpret that, the mental overwhelm that we have, well, something's got to give at some point. It's not about intelligence. It's about action. Because action provides you with evidence. Evidence provides you with confidence. Confidence gets reinforced in your identity. Too much information leads to hesitation. Write that down. Too much information leads to hesitation. Because it puts you in this analysis paralysis stuck hamster wheel cycle where the decisions are never made. Nothing is improved and everything is totally delayed. So you know a whole lot more. Awesome. Congratulations for being a subject matter expert, but you still move less. You can't pull the trigger. You can't make it. Now, we can't generalize. It's not fair for me to say all, but it is happening. We are getting overthinking by the thousand. Decision making is not driven by information alone. We have to take into account how objective we are and see all sides of things without throwing down opinions, judgments, and labels so quickly. Delay some of that stuff. Some of that stuff is favorable. It can be supportive, but delay some of it. Start to see all sides of things to understand. Because when we see all sides of things, it'll drive us towards getting clear on our interpretation. What about feelings? I understand feelings are important, but if you think of pain, if we take a needle and I prick my finger, I'm going to get messages in the body about that. And we feel emotions, and emotions come up, and those emotions are also messages. They're usually trying to tell us something. Our emotions are like a signpost in the forest. They're trying to tell you which way to go. They're trying to help you understand yourself. Because courage is what it's all about. Courage is literally what crosses the bridge from knowledge to actual action. Because remember, action creates evidence. Evidence reinforces your identity because you get confident as a result. Courage is not knowing more than everyone else. Because where we have a lot of information, it will totally increase our level of uncertainty. And when we're uncertain, we feel unsafe. Courage gives us the ability to take all of that knowledge and put it into an actual direction. So courage is acting when knowing is incomplete. And you have to have an experience to get more data, to get more information, so you can actually go forward. Because remember, that experience gives you evidence and proof, which gives you more courage and reinforces your identity and self-esteem as well. So it becomes the force that turns interpretation into reality via action. So without courage, then you'll just get a lot of information and analysis paralysis. Awareness is supposed to help you, but awareness becomes paralysis when you don't have courage. Interpretation becomes lived experience with courage. So here's the thing I want to break down to you at the end of the day here. Mary's room, it brings us to a very hard pill to swallow. A very hard pill. And it still matters after 44 years later. Is that when we're dealing with information has nothing to do with experience. Information is not experience. Information is supposed to support you in your experience. But having courage is the car or the vehicle to get you there. So information is not experience. It's supportive. It's helpful. It is the map. It is not the territory. The territory is lived experience. Knowledge is not reality. We live in information and information reality, but it is our feelings inside there that are also helping us. It's like trust your gut. People don't even know what that looks like. They don't know what instincts are or intuition is because we're so focused on knowledge, that we don't tap into that intuitive understanding of who. And intelligence is not the same thing as understanding. It's not. We do not live in data per se, although our reality is information. We live in the interpretation of that information. And our world is fucking saturated. It's saturated. So the big question I'm going to leave you with, the big question is no longer what do you know, how much do you know, and how many degrees you have. The big question is what will you choose to experience in your life anyway? And that's all I'm going to say. Feel free to click the Patreon link below so you can grow with me on this channel. We don't deny information, but we do understand it. So we can have some action and move towards wisdom and application. Take care.